So, you know the theory behind quality by design? We all do. But how do you actually take that strategy from the conference room and get it working on the manufacturing floor? Well, that's the real challenge, isn't it? Today, we're breaking down a practical 5-step roadmap to implement a QbD framework in your facility. And the key is doing it without stopping production or risking an audit.
First, we'll talk about why the old fixed-point era is really holding you back. Then, we're going to get into building your data foundation, learning how to safely test your process boundaries, and, this is a big one, tackling company culture. And finally, we'll look at the real-world operational payoff of making this big change.
All right, let's start by setting the stage. Look, the traditional, super rigid way of manufacturing, it's just not sustainable anymore. It's really time we moved from talking about the theory to actually executing it.
Now, in our last deep dive, we really tore into why that classic 3-batch validation rule just doesn't cut it anymore. It's a financial trap. It's a totally reactive approach that just locks you into this endless cycle of expensive deviations. It's time for a proactive strategy.
And this, right here, is the core of what we're tackling today. It's not about understanding QbD in a meeting. It's about how you walk onto the floor on a Monday morning, tell your team the old way is over, and start building a real design space in an active, running facility.
So, where do we even begin? Well, the first 2 steps are all about building a solid data foundation. Think of this as the absolute bedrock of your entire QbD transition.
This slide shows the transformation perfectly. On the left, you're buried in paperwork, you're always reacting to problems. But after a proper data audit, you start seeing hidden patterns, you're focused only on the critical signals, and you can finally take proactive control of your whole process. It's a total game changer.
So, step 1. The key here is realizing you probably already have all the data you need. It's just stuck in old paper logs. Your first job is to get all that history digitized. You're basically a detective, hunting for these hidden correlations. You know, stuff like, does your product's moisture content always spike when the facility's intake temperature hits a certain point? Insights just like that are the real starting point for your new design space.
Okay, once your data is free, step 2 is all about focus. Listen, not every variable is created equal. We've got to separate the vital signals, your critical process parameters, from all that background noise. These signals are the handful of variables that have a direct, measurable impact on your final product's quality.
So how do you find those signals? You use proven risk assessment tools like a failure mode and effects analysis, or FMEA. This helps you ask the really tough questions. Does this parameter affect patient safety? Does it impact the product's potency? If the answer is no, well, it's probably just noise. This kind of discipline lets you focus your valuable lab testing hours only on the areas that pose the highest risk.
With your critical parameters identified, we can move to step 3, testing your true boundaries. This is where you run a pilot program and prove, not just guess, that you genuinely understand and control your process.
This slide just perfectly captures the huge mindset shift that's required. The old way of running 3 perfect batches, that actually hides your process weaknesses. The QbD way is to apply intentional stress. You prove your process is robust not by avoiding problems, but by proving you can handle them. And that proof is exactly what unlocks true operational freedom. This stress test is, well, it's everything. You have to intentionally push toward the edges of your parameters. You need to show regulators that even at maximum mixing speed or minimum pressure, your product stays exactly the same. When you can demonstrate control at the edges, that's what earns their trust and gives you the flexibility you desperately need. So, we've handled the data, we've handled the process. Now we get to what might just be the hardest part of this entire transition: the people and the culture. This right here should be the new mantra for your operations team. For decades, they've been trained to be afraid of any kind of variance. We have to retrain them to understand that our goal isn't 0 variance, it's controlled variance, inside a proven, safe space. For step 4, you have to accept that your biggest hurdle won't be a piece of technology. It's going to be your facility's culture. Real success completely hinges on retraining your operators and building a new culture of excellence where everybody understands and, most importantly, trusts the data. And how do you build that trust? You give them the right tools. You need to invest in an intuitive digital dashboard, something that visualizes the whole process and shows them exactly where they are inside that safety cube in real time. When they can actually see the data and understand the boundaries, they will start to trust the process. Now for step 5. This is all about communicating your hard work to regulators in the right way. Using what's called a rolling submission approach, you first package the science nice and clearly. Second, you prove that you understand the why behind your process limits. Nailing this unlocks the ultimate prize, the freedom to make process changes without having to file for post-approval supplements every single time.
Okay, so after all the data audits, the stress tests, and the retraining, let's talk about the final result, the operational payoff. What is the actual real-world return on all this investment?
First, let's be totally clear. Transitioning to quality by design is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take time and it's going to take commitment. But the return on that investment is massive, and honestly, it's undeniable.
And here's the proof of that ROI. A single, well-executed pilot program can reduce your process deviations by up to 80%. Just think about what that means for a second. Less waste, fewer investigations, and more product getting out the door. An 80% reduction makes the upfront investment a complete no-brainer for long-term operational excellence.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What is the single biggest roadblock in your facility right now? Is it legacy equipment, the upfront cost, or is it the culture? Really thinking about that is the very first step on your own QbD roadmap.